I'm Joey Tedesco, and you're watching the Cartoon Palooza. For the final part of Dreamworks Month, I'm going to be looking at Shrek 2, which means as far as internet relevancy, we're looking at this being way past Shrek is Love and Shrek is Life to the current all-star Smash Mouth meme. I gotta pay attention to this stuff because it's fairly relative to know where it is in trending popular stuff so that, I can catch that B-movie train again. I get a lot of flack when I call out the Shrek sequels as being mediocre. Or should I say, mediocre. Well, here's the point. People get annoyed when I include Shrek 2 as being weaker than the first. Even though both films have almost the same amount of positive criticism over the years, you either love Shrek 1 or love Shrek 2 more. But what separates the two is how the sequel's considered the biggest success, having held on to the title of highest grossing animated film up until 2007, and was the highest grossing film for 2004 period. Unfortunately, I'm in the camp of people that feels the first film is better. However, today I'll see if it's a personal bias though it's the first film, or if there's a good enough reason that the sequel's not as good as the first. Our movie picks up right after the wedding in the first film, where both Shrek and Fiona are on their honeymoon. The newlyweds are then invited to see Fiona's parents, in their faraway kingdom literally called Far Far Away, which is less like a fairy tale kingdom and more like Beverly Hills. However, we discover that the parents were not expecting their daughter to marry a beast when we discover that the king made a deal with a fairy godmother to have her son Prince Charming marry the Fiona. Not only does this scheme make little to no sense, as I'll discuss later, but it gives this joke in the first film more meaning on a second viewing.
Oh, you were expecting Prince Charming?
Well, yes, actually.
The king hires a cute character with the voice of El Mariachi to kill Shrek, who now wants to please Fiona and make her happy. All the while, fairy godmother wants her son to marry Fiona. That's our movie. What does that leave us with? I don't think there needed to be a sequel to Shrek, as I feel the story had a good wrap-up, added to the fact that there was only one Shrek book anyways. I'm glad to see these characters back, even though it can seem kinda redundant. It takes away the friendship both Shrek and Donkey overcame despite being different in the first film. Now you have them go through the same bickering from the first part. There's only so much a man can take of Shrek getting pissed off at Donkey before you just shout, "Just kiss already." Part of me's disappointed we don't get to see characters from the first film either get limited screen time or never return for other sequels. The worst of this bunch is Farquaad, who even though managed to return in the 4D ride in comic books, never managed to return to the screen. Now, you might argue that there would be a complication to the character seeing that he's a little dead, but in the comics he returned as a ghost. Also, it's a land of fairy tales, anything can happen in fiction. The irony is that even though they could easily make the choice to have a character like Farquaad return, it's almost as if every character who's killed off manages to stay dead in this franchise. That includes Fairy Godmother and her son in the third film, so at least they managed to have some consistency in how they handle their villains. I guess what I don't understand is how they couldn't make a more interesting villain. Farquaad was a parody of the Disney prince. He used the fairy tale conventions and cliches in hope of getting what he wants. Who's the Fairy Godmother? She's a parody of the folksy Disney sidekick who uses fairy tale conventions and cliches in hope of getting more power. And if that don't seem redundant enough, she's got a son who's also a parody of the Disney prince who also uses fairy tale conventions and cliches in hopes of getting what he wants. If having one of the same character wasn't enough, how about twice? In all fairness, the prince in the movie seemed to have been given the crap end of the stick on this one. In the film, his mother grants Fiona's parents a favor to turn her beautiful if her son marries her, but only if he rescues her from a locked tower guarded by a dragon and, well, what's up with that? Just have Fiona turned into a normal princess and then have an arranged marriage. Why throw a tower with a fire-breathing dragon guarding it into the mix? It's not like there's gonna be another guy willing to rescue her, claim her as his wife. Wait, hold on a second. A couple people did, and one of them actually won. In fact, even before Shrek or Farquaad, there were dozens of princes who were willing to marry her. On top of all this, what kind of a mother would put her son through fire-breathing dragons and volcanoes just to have them married off in the slim chance he gets to rescue her first? I don't know what's more upsetting, the fact that they made pretty lame villains, or that their scheme is as convoluted as Dick Dastardly trying to win the wacky races. Which, on a random tangent, anybody consider how he spends more time scheming over actual racing? But if we're on the subject of characters, let's talk about Puss in Boots. Just in his concept, he was enough for people to buy into. The macho moviegoers would get a kick out of him fighting, where the more affectionate moviegoers go buy into his cuteness. Here's the thing though, I think Puss was successful on the fact that we finally get to see an actor like Antonio Banderas take on a cartoon character and not feel out of place. Now up to this point, Banderas was the action hero, and it was hard to imagine him getting a character down unless he was drop-kicking, shooting a gun, or saying a one-liner through his unique accent. Much in the same way where we bought into a character like the genie in Aladdin for being a Robin Williams creation, and the same way Donkey was unique to Eddie Murphy, the same goes for Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots. However, as cool as the character was, his purpose in the film is to go from a hitman to suddenly become another companion for Shrek. For me, that took away Donkey's purpose. I mean, here's the thing, 2 is a pair, but now 3's a crowd. Know what I'm saying? Now, he's not a bad character for this reason, I just think it's a little overwhelming. Now, speaking of overwhelming, the thing that keeps this movie from being as enjoyable as the first is its use of jokes. I know this is an odd complaint considering the first film was a parody of Disney and it featured dozens of jokes and gags, but here's the thing. The first film would usually take a pause from the jokes, or the focus would be on telling one joke at a time as opposed to a constant stream of visual gags, verbal jokes, quips, and pop culture related puns. Gee, it's almost as if I'm watching Shark Tale again, minus the cringe-inducing character designs. In fact, Shark Tale probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for this film. Up until Kung Fu Panda, which seems to find a balance between its humor to story, every DreamWorks animated movie seemed to put more emphasis on its jokes and zippy animation over the story. Now, compared to the speed of the characters' cuts and camera movements, it's a whole lot faster in this movie than the last. Granted, this makes the effect of the jokes come to a faster pace, but given that this is before CG rendering and textures were perfected, it gives off odd, uncanny movements, especially since the character designs were heavily focused on realistic skins and textures. The slower speed in the previous films felt more natural because it suited that animation. It wasn't until the 4th movie where characters like Rumpelstiltskin felt more natural to this line of motion. But by that point, the studio was going through a change, where then they realized they couldn't continue most of these gimmicks, like the 1,000,001 jokes that even Mel Brooks would want to take a break from after watching the first act. On a whole, I wish things like Puss in Boots and some impressive scenes like the cover of Holding On to a Hero was enough for me to like this movie as much as the first. I'm serious, of all the times Bonnie Tyler's music has been used in movies, this may be the first time this song specifically was actually covered and not just played like in Footloose or Short Circuit 2. However, the fact is that it kinda copied the things we liked from the first film without improving them and even taking a downgrade to characters like the villains, and the fact that it tries so hard to constantly making you laugh when all it had to do was tell a straight-through story with the occasional jokes, is not enough for me to really say this movie's worth it, just okay. This brings me to my question for today. What is your favorite fairy tale character? Comment below and let me know what you think. Now, I just want to let you guys know that I'm going to be going on a little bit of a break in June for a while, so I'm going to be out for a bit. But no, I'm not going to be gone for good. I'm just going to be posting vlogs, the occasional streams, just going to be holding off on Cartoon Palooza reviews. And that time, give me time to rest. I'll be still working on stuff, updating, saying stuff on Twitter and Facebook. So, I'm not going to be gone for good, but just letting you know, it's the summer. I got to go on vacation. Thanks for watching Dreamworks Month, and I'll catch you around in the future. Take care, guys.